You know security is hard, so let's assume we're probably gonna get pwned by noon. But if we all start to get the basics right, we might not fully get pwned until tonight. Oh, we did it. We're still here, right? You're still there? We're still live?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Well, good afternoon, everybody who's joining us. Brian Johnson here with 7 Minute Security, joined by Ron Cole of Immersive Labs. Ron, thanks a lot for being here.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure.
So good to have you. I know we've both wrestled with some different difficulties today. You've had a petri dish of germs come home with your kids. I had just a small heart attack right as that little countdown deal was going. I have this fancy pants Roadcaster deal for live music recording and stuff. And to get a better audio recording of our chat today for the audio podcast that'll come out later this week, I just went ahead real quick and pushed the record button, and the whole Roadcaster like blue screened and then rebooted. So I was frantically thinking, I have to come up with another mic if this thing doesn't go live. And then it gave me green lights like seconds before we came live. So now I feel like we've worked the technical gremlins out, and now we can just talk security. Sound good?
That sounds great to me.
Well, I'm familiar with you because we've had a couple chats in the past about security and about building labs and ranges and that kind of stuff. But please, would you give the folks at home a little background of who the heck you are and who you think you are? No. And just sort of what brought you, what brought us here, and what kind of your security journey a little bit that got you here today.
Absolutely. So before we kind of go to where I started, let's talk about where I'm at now. I'm currently a solutions consultant for Immersive Labs. We are a leader in cyber resiliency training, upskilling, crisis response and management, as well as workforce exercising. And that really blended well with my passion for ensuring that even if you're the smallest business, that you have cybersecurity awareness, and being cyber forward is something that we really want to put out to the world and provide awareness for.
Fantastic.
But my background, so I started at 18 years old. I left Charleston, West Virginia, and I moved across the country, started basic training with the United States Air Force in a career field that had absolutely nothing to do with security. I was promised to shoot birds off a runway, and it sounded pretty cool, so I signed up for 6 years. But
and I have to ask, sorry, it's not related to security at all, but that whole basic training thing, is it truly like it is in the movies where like you just get any bad attitude that you have kind of shaken out of you, and you ended up just with jacked shoulders, and like when people are talking to you this way, you have to move your whole torso? Or is that like a little bit of a exaggeration of how like mentally and physically in shape you get?
Maybe a little bit of exaggeration. Granted, I was in the Air Force, so things were not very jarheadish.
Okay.
I had quite a few learning lessons right off the bat. My first one was about 8 hours after arriving. We woke up and it was 4 o'clock in the morning. And I don't know if I went into like shock or what was going on, but I had a drill instructor in my face and I wouldn't wake up. He's looking around at everybody like, is he dead? What is going on?
You check on your
Yes. And I opened my eyes and I was like, oh, I think I've made a mistake. I'm ready to go back to Charlie West ASAP.
Oh no. Was it yell at you for not hearing the wake up call? And
it wasn't even that I didn't hear it. I think I just like froze. And then eventually I was like, oh. All right, I have to get up. And I'm like, okay, as fast as possible.
Yeah.
There was a lot of stories of the culture shock of joining the fast-paced environment of basic training, but it all led out to a great career in security in kind of a weird way. And that's kind of where I did. So I was shooting birds off a runway, and I was sent on a couple deployments. I started school after my first, and I got my associates in business. Realized, all right, I need something a little more specialized, and I actually moved into cyber warfare unit, electronic warfare, with the EC-130H. And that is where I got my first taste in security, albeit it was offensive and it was jamming. I wasn't necessarily on the technical side, but I was exposed to a lot of kind of like-minded individuals.
Wow.
And then the University of Arizona had some great marketing material. They talked about all these unfulfilled jobs in cybersecurity, and they showcased a little bit of their platform on the offensive and defensive side. And that's where I've kind of was like, all right, well, I'm not like super technical. Let's see if I can get the training to do it. And that program provided me the foundation to become fully capable in the industry from a SOC and moving on into other avenues of the career. But it was great to the faculty there was they love cyber, they love technical challenges, and they really were able to push that out to the students and help us curate a love on our own of technology.
What are those first like days of your like security training there look like? I mean, is it starting with kind of like security fundamentals of just like, hey, here's kind of the CIA triad, and here's things that make up like a good whatever security posture or program, or does it get kind of like right into, you said it was like electronic warfare, so was it kind of like right into like, let's jump into the technical angle of security and how that all works and offense and defense, or what is that? Yeah, I guess what does roughly that curriculum look like? I'm curious.
So it all started, where I think every member who wants to get into security should start with learning the fundamentals. So networking, intro to computing, but networking specifically. If I could go back and take any class multiple different times, it's going to be intro to networking, because everything you're going to do throughout your career, you're building a base. And I realized that pretty quickly because I took CompTIA Security Plus after college.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, I probably should have taken Net Plus, not because it's the, a better cert, or it's the foundational knowledge. That way you're able to move confidently throughout your career with that, building the base first.
Yeah. And I wish I could just like record a little snippet of that and kind of play that for everybody, because I still, we get, we're a small team here, so we're not like actively hiring all the time, but I get a lot of sort of unsolicited email about, hey, I'm like a really good, hacker. I know how to hack things, or how do I go right from whatever high school or college, right to the fun stuff. And I know today it's different, especially with all the free training and stuff that's available on YouTube, is like, you can get those core offensive security skills, and you can effectively attack things, right? Like web apps and networks. But I feel like it ultimately is it's gonna catch up with you, or it's gonna hinder you at some point. Kind of like to what you said, right? Where it's like, okay, I'm really good at, hacking all the things. And I had, I've talked about it a lot on this podcast, but I had a job that was like that for a while that I thought was my dream job, which was just our department was in charge of breaking all the things. And it was so much fun, right? So it's like, it's Monday morning. Here comes a new network. Here comes a new web app. All we're going to do is blow it up all week. And then like, that's it. It just moves down kind of like the conveyor belt to somebody else who's going to write the report, translate the report, work on remediation. Right. And I just thought, man, if I was new to security and I didn't, and this is all I wanted to do, I think it would be tiring. And I would feel like I want to do more. I want to get kind of branched out into more of a consulting role. And that's tough to do if, like, to your point, you haven't gone back and had some foundation in like, networking and seeing the broader picture, because I think that just makes you a better consultant, right? I mean, it's one thing to sort of blow everything up, but when the customer is like, well, how do we fix these? And how do these fixes maybe impact my network? I mean, sometimes the fixes are as just straightforward as patch that thing. But a lot of times it's like, it's some group policy thing. It's something that's going to affect Active Directory and might negatively affect the whole environment. And if you don't know any of that stuff, well, then that's going to be, that's going to be tough. You're going to be a little bit pigeonholed into the person that can break everything. And some people like that, right? Some people, made great careers out of that. But that's what I tell, anyway, full circle, that's what I tell these folks who kind of write into me. And a lot of them, act a little bit snotty afterwards, as if I'm brushing them off, when it's like, well, I'm not. I'm just looking out for you. I want you to have I kind of go, if I could do it in order, I would do it more in order.
Yeah.
Go back, I would do fundamentals and build. I've had to do what you have maybe had to do a little too, which is catch up.
Yeah.
knowledge. So
Absolutely. But that's part of the game, right? So you're constantly learning. I spend probably 90% of my day just researching things that I need to brush up on, or things it's not even what things I want to move forward on. It's just reinforcing what I already know, make sure it's fine tuned, and then staying up to date. Security is constantly changing, and the careers are constantly changing. The days of becoming a sysadmin and moving on to a SOC later in your career, those are kind of over. So when I was at Arctic Wolf, we hired triage interns, and they were still in college, being tier 1 as an analyst, and that's really cool. But also, if I threw them onto a computer, I'm like, hey, I need you to do some sysadmin work, they're going to look really confused unless you provide them some sort of enablement or upskilling. And that's a lot of what Immersive Labs is doing, is they're able to provide these fundamental skills, foundational training, and look for areas in those gaps that will help your team make sure that they're well-rounded, but also be able to see what areas you need to focus in on.
Yeah, right on. And so when were you sitting in kind of a SOC seat? Was that still when you were in Air Force, or was that more out when you were out of that and into school?
Yeah, so I started when I was in the Air Force. I wasn't technical, but I was in school full time. So it was busy nights, busy days.
Sure.
But when my last 6 months in the military, I had the opportunity to do DoD Skills Bridge, which, for any companies out there listening, you can't build a better program for veterans. If you want to help veterans in their careers, that is the way to do it. There's no risk to you. These are unpaid interns. They're being paid by the Department of Defense, the military, but they're learning those foundational skills of how to operate in a civilian world. So that was a fundamental piece of my success. I was hired by Tucson Electric Power I did identity access management as an intern. So it kind of gave me a little bit of feel, but I kept seeing the SOC over here. It's like, okay, that was, and you mentioned dream job earlier. Yeah. So I've had 100 dream jobs, I think, in this career. Right. It's all about the pivot. I really embraced learning different parts of security, different jobs. I mean, the role I'm in now is so different than anything I ever thought. I thought my dream job was to be, working my way up to tier 1, tier 2, and 3, Tucson Electric Power. That was 4 roles ago, and a much different shift. But that's where I worked in the SOC. I got hired as when I was in college there as tier 1, and I was able to start triaging events. And one of my first day on the job as an intern was when I realized, there's security's here for a reason. We had our CEO was outgoing, and this is public knowledge, so I can talk about it a little bit. And
button on that thing, yeah.
We had a CEO who was going outbound, and someone overseas sent a whaling attack to our finance department. Hey, this is Bob, the CEO, and I need to change my routing information for my golden parachute. It was like, a solid $7.5 million. And when they said, oh yeah, not a problem, they sent that money over. He turned it to Bitcoin and ran. We never heard from him again. FBI, as far as I know, never was able to catch wind. They were involved though, and this was my very first day. I was like, oh, this is fascinating. This is something out of a movie. Like, count me in. Yeah. Then, so being able to see the impact on day one, most people are like, oh yeah, I got coffee and I met Bob. But I was like, no, I saw CNN get involved for a little bit there. Like, things got weird.
Right.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Oh my goodness. So what other kind of things did you, I guess, kind of taken away from your SOC time? And maybe to someone who's kind of got their eye on that ball like you did, right, about what a SOC analyst kind of is and isn't. I've seen the job descriptions and heard through colleagues that, boy, that title, SOC analyst, right, to any, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is, it can be so either like so narrow or so broad, and maybe it depends on the size of the company. But I feel like it's one of those things, like when you say, oh, I'm a network admin, that's changed so much over the years too, right? It used to be like, well, more traditionally, you were in charge of the network and the systems and kind of
plug in the wires.
Yeah, a little bit more availability based. And then just over the years, right, especially some of these smaller companies, they're like, Oh, by the way, you're also running the security program. I mean, you're in charge of technical security and like the security, policies and training and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I guess like maybe kind of in a nutshell, did you go, hey, a SOC role would be great if you want this, but maybe don't expect it to give you that, or I guess kind of like maybe your takeaways from that SOC time.
Yeah. So takeaways from SOC time. It's a very there's, like you said, there's a million different ways and avenues to get into to the SOC, and it depends on the company. If you're looking at something like Arctic Wolf, well, they have programs where you can come in as an intern and get your first experience in a SOC. But if you're looking into an enterprise level, SOC isn't really going to be the best place to start. So you're really going to struggle trying to. A lot of the business is definitely going to be connection oriented. So but getting your foot in the door is what I've taken from everything. If there is a role in a company and you're wanting to target, don't be afraid to just get your foot in the door as long as it makes sense for your career. Yep. Because ultimately that's where you start learning to pivot, finding out where your passions lie. Like for myself, example, I went from SOC and then started into pentesting. And it wasn't just the traditional network pen test. We were picking locks and finding physical security vulnerabilities, as well as network and web app vulnerabilities, sending out phishing attacks to enterprise level organizations. And that is the majority of people. When you start school day one, they're like, oh, that's what I want to do. I want to be the next Kevin Mitnick. That's cool. And it was cool, right? But then you find out, okay, my passions are, a little bit outside. I found out my passion, it started blending into people. I was hired at Arctic Wolf on the concierge team, where I acted more as a consultant, but I was able to put kind of my technical cap on and help companies work through things. And that's what eventually led me to be a solutions consultant going forward, is that passion for people, passion for technology. It's a rare field. It's a small field, because a lot of security members, like they're introverted. So for those who are extroverted, take a look at these consulting roles. That is where and if you have the technical aptitude and ability, you're really going to make an impact on the organization.
For sure. So I just wanted to go back to one thing when you were talking about being on the SOC and kind of how to maybe get into one of those type of roles if you've got your eye on it. If you work for a bigger company and you're maybe in some other department, but they have a SOC. I had a buddy who had a lot of luck with just kind of reaching out to a manager of that department and being like, hey, on my lunch break, can I just do like a brown bag lunch and basically just come and shoulder surf with this SOC department and just, I'll shut up, right? I'll just sit there and I'll ask, or not shut up, but I'll ask questions. I won't get in your way. And did that over the course of like a couple months and picked up a ton of knowledge. And then come a time where they had an opening in that department, the manager was like, well, listen, we've got this other person. They want to move laterally, right? It's like one of those less paperwork, less, long hiring arcs, right, of bringing in somebody new. And he was able to just kind of slide into that, get a big pay bump, that kind of thing. So I guess just throw that out there, because your path to maybe, moving into more of a role that you want might be right there in your own company, rather than like, well, I got to get ready to dust off the old resume, right, and plan for a complete shift somewhere else. So
absolutely. And part of my time at Arctic Wolf, I was working with small, medium businesses. So we would see guys coming onto these meetings who their companies decided to make a shift for security. They don't have the manning, they don't have the budget, they don't really have an idea of what they're going to do, but they're like, okay, we're going to hire an MDR to handle it. Well, now this guy who is like, I just keep the phones on, like that has been my job the whole time, and now they're telling me they want me to make sure we don't get hit by ransomware because we have to hit compliance, or we may have gotten popped recently. So now my job hasn't changed, but my role is much different. And that is kind of a good opportunity for maybe someone who you see that security team down the hall, and you're like, okay, this is something I'd like to get interested in. Start, walking over there, asking the questions, doing sides or self-study. Or if you're in a smaller org and there's not a security presence, your org isn't security conscious, figure out how you can start becoming that security champion internally, being able to make the case of why cybersecurity should matter to your team is going to be leaps and bounds ahead, and you're building your own position essentially.
Yes, and that's that just anecdotally reminds me of another kind of just story related to that, where another friend of mine was doing exactly what you were trying to do, is just promote security from within, and rather than just kind of scream and hope that those screams would be heard at the upper levels of the management chart, he offered to just go like, hey, could I offer a lunch hour thing where people come in here, or maybe we bring in pizza or something, and I just do like a 30-minute thing on like just basic basic technical security things like for your phones, and talk about making better passwords and how important multi-factor is, right? Like very much aim it at people's home life and home security, with kind of the like, little hidden gem of whatever I'm going to teach them is also going to help them be more secure here. And that was kind of the grease on the wheel for that organization, for them to just be like, oh, this is cool. Like people really liked it. They gave good feedback. But then it started, those people kind of started asking questions about like, oh, wait, are we doing that here? Like, do we have multi-factor? Like when I log into my corporate email at home, I'm not getting prompted for anything. And so it started, right? Like this little kind of productive cluck security fest where it just got enough kind of popcorn chatter that it did reach the attention of the executives, and they, very slowly, right? But they started to take it more seriously. And that ultimately, I mean, I don't know the fine details of their security program, but I think that's a great way to, really have from a top down perspective, right? Have upper management, be going, hey, we need to do this. And it's not because we got that compliance check mark or a checkpoint coming up. It's not because some customer is screaming about it and we're going to do the bare minimum. It's really because, there's a security mindset across the whole organization. And so, management started reflecting that. And I just thought like, that is so cool. I mean, it's like kind of like a cheesy after school special, but it's true, where it's just like the little security person that could, where they ended up long-term making great change. I just think that's awesome. So yeah, good point, right? Like do what you can, do at least a little, whatever your part is, right? To help the org be more secure. It'll hopefully have a, kind of a daisy chain of a ripple effect and affect others positively.
Absolutely. I think that makes a big difference in having one security champion versus zero at a company.
Yeah.
That ripple effect, that's exactly what every company should start. They should, no matter what role it is, find one guy who might have a passion for protecting, everyone's worried about their personal security, and that needs to start blending in as well. So you hear a lot of people that I've worked with in the industry, the security acumen or their security acumen is high, so they won't find them online. My very first run-in was when I was pen testing. There was our junior pen tester. He was a ghost. He like his dream was to like have Starlink in the middle of nowhere, and no one could contact him. He wanted to work remote, but like we got interviewed for the paper at one point. And he took PTO that day. He's like, oh, absolutely not. So there's far extremes is what I'm trying to get at is there's far extremes on one end and then the other, but being able to find that blend and showing a passion for security, because I'm a big believer in your passions will make for long careers. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people come in for money or other purposes, which rightfully so, right?
Yeah.
We are still in a capitalist environment.
Got to make money. Yep.
Absolutely. But if you can find what you're passionate about within your career, then you're going to go much further. You're going to be much more intrinsically motivated.
Yeah. Well, so I love, of course, anytime I hear the word pen test, right? That's like music to my ears. I know you've got some pen testing experience. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. You said kind of encapsulated several avenues, so physical and what some network, maybe some web and stuff, like what
a little bit of web.
Yeah, what did you do there? Maybe if you've got favorite either success or horror stories to share. I know our audience dig those. We do a whole pretty pretty regularly occurring chapter, if you will, of the podcast called Tales of Pentest Ponage, and it's all about. It's not to like throw dirt in anybody's face. It's just like this stuff is super interesting. To your point, we're really passionate about it. Like, look at this interesting, the defenses and stuff we ran up against, right? Or look where we got blocked entirely. We kind of love all of it. So yeah, curious to see what kind of things you've run across and maybe some good trouble you found yourself in.
Absolutely. So my wife and I moved from Tucson after working with Tucson Electric Power, and we moved back to West Virginia for about 8 to 10 months. I was hired as a SOC analyst. I didn't have a lot of pen test experience.
Okay.
And next thing I know is I show up to this building, and it's in Marshall University's business incubator. We didn't have computers. We had empty desks. They're like, oh, by the way, bring your personal computers and start ordering things. We're giving you a budget and you're going to figure it out. Okay. All right. This is different. So we're sitting on a lot of demos. I saw a lot of sales engineers. And then he's like, oh, we have a pen test gig coming up. Huh? Like, we've never done this.
No pen testers to do it.
Yeah. So we're like, all right, we need to figure this out as soon as possible. And we, all three of us were like sitting together. All right. So we went to PTES, kind of read through the 10 pages of it to understand kind of the different phases. And now next thing, we purchased some tools, made sure because we all had like a little bit of experience. Like I had a little bit in school. I think the member who's next to me, he did a lot of like hack the box type stuff. So,
yeah, great.
And then we were able to bring in a subject matter expert from the college. So that helped. He was he was our project manager, kept us in line for sure.
Okay.
And the most successful op that we did, it was on-prem, there was network, and then we also did a lot of phishing attacks. But we sent out, it was during COVID times. We sent out an email. We noticed that a domain for the city, they used .gov, but .com was available. So there was a city of .com. It looked very similar. You would never know. And we created a landing page that we knew that when you go to log into their email, what it looks like. So when they went to go log in, after clicking our phishing link, we were talking, it was a COVID email that we sent out. Hey, an update on COVID-19 in West Virginia.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
We had a 70% success rate.
Ooh.
That was nuts. We had probably 140 credentials that were input. And
what were you using for kind of your credential catcher? Was it just like kind of a just regular old like HTML form, or were you using like some phishing product, or
we built everything off GoFish.
Oh yeah, great. Yep. Still use that. It's wonderful.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I've done internal ops for just for user awareness with GoFish. There's so many different ways you can utilize it. It's great.
Yeah.
But so we sent that out with all these credentials, and then I quickly realized, oh wait a minute, there's password reuse here out the wazoo. Everyone's utilizing their email password for their it was a hospital we were pen testing, their electronic medical records.
Oh boy.
There was no stop gaps. You log in and you have everything. Usernames, passwords. So that was like our first big win. Like, oh gosh, that was exciting, right? So we showed that we can get in. They didn't have an Active Directory domain or anything like that. So we showed that was pretty much as far as we can get. And we let them know, because that's a critical vulnerability. Hey, you need like some sort of MFA, something, or some sort of policy. And then we moved into the physical engagement. And this was different because it had so many locations all across Appalachia. Some of the most beautiful areas, but very small towns. I walked in with a thumb drive, and it was raining that day, and I had a piece of paper that got soaked. I'm on my way to an interview with the bank across the street. Can you please print this out? I'm really looking forward to this job.
Oh,
First person said no. I was like, they're like, sorry, that we're not allowed to do that. Well, luckily they had a pharmacy across the street, and I just walked over there. Same spiel. Please, please, please. Oh yeah, no problem, honey. Let me help you. And they walked over, plugged in the USB. I had my cohort in the car, and he's boom. Now we've got C2 access.
And what were you doing? What was it one of the little Hack 5 duckies or something?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, that was your shell catcher or
Yep.
instigator? Oh, sweet.
Hack 5. That
Love it.
they would take all my paychecks. I'm convinced they're great.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Good to love those doodads for sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
During that time though, they were hard to get. We could only get a couple of them. We were really struggling.
Yeah.
They were always sold out, but that's what we ended up using is one of the Hack 5 products, and then we used their C2 terminal as well. But then we showed we had access, once again, more access to electronic medical records. So that was great. And that was kind of a physical engagement, but we took it a step further. We wanted to see what their physical security perimeters looked like. So we sat in the parking lot, and we were probably 20 yards or so but we were able to zoom in, and this was like 2013, I'm sorry. This is 2020. We were able to zoom in on an iPhone, not like super great cameras, not like right now, but we could kind of see the motion that they were going on the locks to get into the building. So we just kind of kept following that routine to understand, all right, what are they doing? And we blew that up, and we tried that in the middle of the night. We're like, okay, like, we see the cameras here, so we blew up a balloon so they couldn't see us. We had masks of the company so that they were like, all right, like, it's probably somebody internal. Waited until I don't know if it was like the cleaners or who it was that leaves at like midnight, but they left. And this is in the middle of the night in the heart of Appalachia, Huntington, West Virginia, not like the greatest part of town. So we were like sitting out there, no car, like all kinds of sirens going around us, where our hearts are beating a little bit.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
And on the way to the op, I listened to the what is the courthouse from Dark Knight Diaries?
Oh yeah.
Yes, where they ended up in jail for like ever.
Yeah. So you're doing this after? No. After
on the way there, I'm listening to the podcast. So now I'm like, I'm gonna go to jail. This is my first pen test.
Yeah.
I'm not totally sure this company's like super legit anyway. Like, I hope we're in order. And we're trying to call the leader, and we're like, hey, what do we have? Or like, are we good? And he wasn't answering. I'm like, if the cops call him, like, what's gonna happen here?
Yeah.
But it all worked out. We went in and input that code, and we got in the first door. Oh, adrenaline's going. I can see the other two jumping up and down in the parking lot. But then I hear, oh
no,
there's a second alarm. So like, I'm trying to find how to shut off this alarm. I had now I've got to find, I didn't know there was another alarm. The camera's in my face. So, but I have my mask on, but I'm sure my eyes were as big as
dinner plates. Yeah.
And I put that same code. So now password reuse, once again, saved the day. Came in, put that password, shut off everything. We had full access to the building. We just planted a flag, found the server room, showed, hey, here's what the damage it could have caused if this was a targeted operation. But it was kind of the thing that you always dream of when you hear these podcasts, and it was so much fun. But then we relayed it to the CEO. Hey, here's where you probably need to focus your areas, and here's where you're vulnerable. Kept everything very interesting, but the CEO was thankful that we found these vulnerabilities, which you don't always find. Every now and then you get a little bit of aggravation because nobody likes to tell you your house is dirty. So
sure.
For future pen testers out there, that's one thing to know is you may have won the battle, but to win the war, you have to show the value. So you don't ever want to gloat on your vulnerabilities. You don't ever want to make the end users feel bad, because our goal is to work as one team. They're essentially hiring you to help them. So that's what we want to do, is kind of give them the white glove treatment, help them, show them how to remediate these vulnerabilities to make sure that future tests are a little more difficult for yourself and hopefully for the adversary.
Yeah. Oh, those are great. Those are great post-founding stories. I love that. And I couldn't agree with you more about and this is something I don't know that you can necessarily pick up in a training or in school. It's kind of those intangible things, but 100% about when it comes time to reading out findings, between you and me and a lot of people like who are wired like us, you just get like the, while you're doing it. And even when you're writing the report, you're just like, oh my gosh, this is a bloodbath, right? But you can't go in like a little kid on Christmas and just be like, I can't wait to show you how much your security sucks. Okay, so here we go. And you start laying it out, right? I got advice early in my security career that I really try to follow is just, they said, think of yourself a little bit more like a lawyer who's going through some sort of proceedings. Like just stick to the facts, right? And don't just, be like, bam, after you read one of the, and then we got domain admin, boom, don't do that stuff. Just, or don't end a finding with just like, yeah, so it was really bad. Don't pepper in extra salt on the wound, or lemon juice in the paper cut. Like just, yeah, like you said, show the narrative, tell the story, but then really focus and come alive on like, okay, well, good news is you can fix a lot of these things with just a group policy change, or, just patch that thing this weekend. And like, that was our whole vector towards getting to whatever we got. But unfortunately, I think there is still a little bit of that where the pen testers walk in, kind of with a little bit of a attitude and like, man, you know what I mean? We're just ninjas. Like you guys just get good at security. Like that stuff just, gives me high blood pressure.
Yeah. Sure. Check your ego at the boardroom.
For sure. Yes. Yep. So as we're kind of closing down and thinking about training, I know, clearly I think your career trajectory has been a great testament to like, never stop being a student, always keep learning. Right. And you've had a lot of interesting kind of stops along the way. I know you have a real passion for, ensuring that vets are trained and have resources, to get into this field in IT and security. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that, what you've kind of seen and what is out there right now and maybe what's up and coming in that space?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of like I mentioned earlier, I came from a very non-standard, non-technical background. Security was pretty foreign to me, other than operational security. Until I moved in, I had been exposed to watching guys do the things that are very technical offensive security type of work.
Yeah.
But which would not make sense on the enterprise or civilian level. But it gave me enough interest to look into programs about cybersecurity.
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate of all the programs that the military offered me. So for any transitioning vets, there are so many different resources out there. Vet to Tech is a great one. Veterati was one of my favorite platforms. Veterati recently shut down. I'm hoping to eventually see something like Veterati come back around again. Veterati was a veterans helping veterans mentoring veterans program. So you could go in and choose what veteran or what skill you're wanting to learn more on, be mentored on, and they would match you with a veteran who's looking to mentor you. So
very cool.
It was I was able to get everything from financial advice, transitioning out of the military advice, cybersecurity leadership, technical resources, so many different avenues that were included on there. So I'm hoping to see that come back. But other than that, there are certification programs out there that you cost free that will help you get the certifications in order to get into the industry. Immersive Labs, specifically for employers. This is a great area. We have a free program that will provide training for veterans as well as other diversity types on cybersecurity training, but we're always looking for partners within that force that are looking to hire from that pool of talent. So that's always something you can always reach out to Immersive Labs for additional information. But as far as if anyone ever was had additional questions, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or shoot me an email. I'd love to kind of talk more about my background, resources I've used, and also I've always got a PDF full of resources that I can share out to help you along your cybersecurity journey.
That's so cool. I will, I'll connect with you before the So like the audio version of this and the accompanying link to the discussion we're having right now, that'll come out tomorrow. I'll touch base with you just to see if any of those links you're talking about, the PDF and whatnot, just build maybe a little link farm, right? Just so like right in the show notes, people are hearing this now. Because I took some notes of some things and I'm not sure if I spelled them right and so on and so forth. So that way people can always refer back to the show notes and find you and find these different resources. Because I think we share that in common. You know, the more people we can get into this field and get trained up, the better. Because oh my gosh, is there a need out there? You know,
absolutely,
especially in the SMB space, right? It's just like, oh man, they just need they need a lot of help. So we need good, kind, qualified folks to address those needs.
And military members are a great fit here because actually really quick, I'll kind of sum it up with why I chose cybersecurity coming from the military.
Yeah.
I was in Afghanistan when I finished up my associates. I think I left off there. And I applied for this program knowing that I didn't want to be in the military forever. Like this was, I did my time and I was ready to move on to the civilian world, but I needed a plan. But I also had a draw to service to country. And especially being out in Afghanistan, I was like, I want to leave this behind, but I want to do something. I still want to keep doing something bigger than myself. Yeah. And this is just cybersecurity is another way of facing the adversary. We're constantly being attacked by other countries, by foreign national APT groups. And this is just the next stage in the fight for any transitioning vet out there. So I often give a talk. It's titled Call to Action. And that's what we're here to do.
That's very cool. Do you say that you have one coming up of that, or that was one in the past? Is that
was one in the past? Yes.
Okay. Is that one we can grab a link to?
I don't know if it was recorded. It was at the Texas Cyber Summit, but I always give some sort of version of it whenever asked. So I'll definitely reach out when the next one comes up.
Fantastic, Ron. Well, really appreciate your time and sharing of your knowledge and your story and your expertise. So appreciate it. Well, hopefully we'll do this again in the future sometime.
All right. Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Take care. You've been watching or listening to 7 Minute Security, a weekly podcast focused on pen testing, blue teaming, and building a career in security. For more episodes like this, visit 7ms.us. And for information about our consulting services, visit 7minsec.com.